Hi, this is Bubby Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. I hope you appreciate that in the ever-changing saga of the Rabbi Orlofsky sign, there was so much interest that it actually physically grew. So it is now much larger. There is not a problem with your, feed. Do not try to adjust your computer. This is reality. The truth of the matter is that I turned 60, and my children made me a 60th birthday party. And they made this very large Rabbi Orlofsky show live, because this is not live, yeah. But it doesn't sound good to say Rabbi Orlofsky show dead, right? So that's kind of depressing. But this is the gigantic sign that came up. They also made a video going around asking various people to wish me a happy birthday, like this one.
Hi, Rabbi Orlofsky. Just wanted to say happy birthday, Yom Huledet Sameach, and sei gesund.
And there are many others, which we will be highlighting in the weeks to come, because I know you're as interested in seeing people wishing me happy birthday as much as I am. So that's going to be coming up in the weeks ahead. We still have sponsorship opportunities available. This week is being sponsored by Nahmias as a hatzlacha and bracha for them. And I happen to know them very well. I know they are watching. And, my heart goes out to you with all my warmth and feeling and all my good wishes and brachas. And thank you so much for having the schus of bringing this, whatever it is, to many, 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 many people. I don't even know how many people anymore, because I keep meeting more and more people who say, I just found out your podcast, I've just started watching, and I don't know how to track these numbers anywhere. But I'm guessing we're well over 10,000 now based on the fact that that's what I think, and there's no way you can disprove me either, so what the heck? Hey, 10,000. So whether you're watching on TorahAnytime.com or YouTube, iTunes, or wherever you listen to podcasts, we're happy to have you along. And this is episode 17, unbelievable, episode 17. And this is going out Parshas Mishpatim. And I want to share a thought, and maybe it's a little more serious than usual, but I'll explain to you why. This past week was my father's yahrzeit, which was Yud Zayin Shvat. This coming week is my mother's yahrzeit, which is Chav Gimel Shvat. Shvat is a very important date for me, a month for me. I may have mentioned this already. I was born in Shvat, and my mother passed away in Shvat, my father passed away in Shvat, and I passed away in Shvat. As luck would have it, I came back. But two major doctors told me I was supposed to be dead. And I remember I was very surprised because I had a heart attack on my birthday. And I said to my wife as the ambulance was taking me away, I don't understand. Tzaddikim die on their birthdays. And I've worked my whole life not to be a tzaddik. So it turns out I was right. And God didn't want me. And in fact, my oldest brother who passed away in Nissan, so my mother, who was already well on in her 80s, was inconsolable as a mother who loses a child can be. And I wasn't able to fly in. It was after my heart attack. So this was 5 years ago. It was after my heart attack. I wasn't allowed to fly to sit shiva with my family. I sat shiva here. And my mother would say to everybody, why? Why did Jason die? Why not me? I said to God, take me. I'm an old woman. I've lived my life already. Why Jason? He's a young man. He has children yet to marry off. Take me. Now, what do you say to a mother who's asking you why her son died, and why she didn't die? And no one knew what to say. So I called up to make a shiva call, and my mother says to me, why? Why did Jason die? Why didn't I die? And I said, because God doesn't want you. You're a cranky old woman. Jay's a lot of fun. He wanted him up in heaven. He'll get to you eventually. But right now, you can't ask why he didn't take you. He doesn't want you. And my mother said, that's the first thing anyone said that makes any sense. So, Mom, I know you're watching up there. For sure. That's why I have so much trouble calculating how many people are watching, because I'm sure they're showing this up in Nahmias. So, gosh, I don't know how many people are watching it, but people come to me sometimes when I'm sleeping. People who've passed away, and they say, love the podcast. Anyway, I'm just kidding about that anyway. But the fact of the matter is that there's something special about that. In fact, one of my kids told me they saw my mother towards the end. I remember it was I brought her into the hospital. I was there when she came in, and the doctor, not her main doctor, the other doctor, they said, "Listen, the test results are so bad that this is basically it. I don't think you're going to make it now. I think you should be thinking about hospice." And my mother said, "Oh, you're a ray of sunshine, aren't you?" But I said, my mother has her 90th birthday coming up in November. Anyway, you could just keep her around until then. And the doctor was kind of surprised by this reaction. He said, it doesn't really work that way. I said, by Orlofsky's, it all goes by the parties. You know what I mean? So like if you could just keep them around, Anyway, but when she realized she never allowed time left, she told one of my kids, she says, "I'm trying not to be so cranky so that God will finally take me." Yeah. So 89 years that she lived in this world. When she passed away, they put up a poster of the great-grandchildren, of the 60 great-grandchildren. It's now over 70. All of whom are being brought up in Torah and mitzvahs. I want you to appreciate this. Yeah. My mother's father started the Green Line Bus Company. Yeah, if you're from the New York area, you might have seen the Green Line Bus Company. My grandfather started that with one bus. And then he brought his brothers over from Europe. He put them in the business, and he built it into a major bus company. They were very comfortable. They lived in Laurelton, which back then was considered a very fancy neighborhood, Anyway, my grandfather passed away young from pneumonia. They didn't have the antibiotics. And the other brothers got together and squeezed out my grandmother so that I lost my bus company. Whenever I go to New York and I see a Green Line bus, I say, that's my bus. To think, instead of a rabbi, I could have been a balabas. But anyway, but my mother told me that her father did not go to shul on Yom Kippur. Nothing. Now, so that you appreciate the contrast, her mother was the daughter of a big Rav in Vilna, Avram Fishel Rudnitsky. I once saw an article where they wrote up about him. He was a big Talmid Chacham, and he also had pull with the government. He was able to stop a pogrom once, And so Marish came from a rabbinic family, and they explained, back then you were lucky you found a Jewish person to get married to, And my mother grew up like that. My father grew up in Brownsville, poor. Yeah, my mother, when she first got married, so my father says, I always loved my mother's cabbage bread, cabbage soup. My mother tried every recipe. By the way, since this is part of the show, I'll share with you my mother's cabbage soup recipe. It is one of the easiest things in the world to make. Yeah? You take a head of cabbage and you cut it up. When you cut it up, put it in the pot. Take a package of flanken, put it in. Put in, 3-4 cans of Hunt's tomato sauce, and add water and sugar. Boil it up until it gets nice and good. Yeah? 3 hours, I don't know what you cook it for. It is out of this world. We always make it sukkahs. Sometimes we make it other times. When you're sitting outside in the sukkah and it's chilly, you have that. Anyway, so my mother kept trying to make the cabbage bread. Yeah? And whatever she made, my father says, it's good, but it's not like my mother's. Yeah. So one day he was in the old neighborhood, and she says to my father, Moishela, you want some cabbage bread? And he's like, sure. And he comes home and says, my mother is a terrible cook. I must have been so hungry that anything I ate was delicious, I didn't realize it. He says to my mother, you're such a great cook, So my father grew up dirt poor, but he grew up in an Orthodox home, but he had no Jewish education whatsoever. So when they when they got married, they agreed to keep a kosher home because it was my grandfather wouldn't eat there otherwise, made it clear. They kept a kosher home. And we grew up. We went to the conservative synagogue, and I have a brother who's a genius. I mean, all my brothers are geniuses, don't get me wrong, but one is like, a sick genius, yeah. And they told him, listen, you got to send him to private school. So my father came from Brownsville, of a private school. He sent him to Hebrew Academy in Nassau County. And Rabbi Findel convinced him to send the 3 younger boys who were just starting school. And that's how we ended up in yeshiva, and that's how eventually we all became frum. And that's how my mother, when she passed away, had 60 great-grandchildren being brought up in Torah and mitzvahs. And you can follow down other lines of the family, almost nothing. I mean, there were, Baruch Hashem, a few, but for the most part, almost nothing from other branches of the family. And I remember I said to my father, I said, how'd you make the decision to send everybody to yeshiva? It must have been expensive. And my mother told me, she says, well, your father had just gone bankrupt. He had a flower shop, and he was working with caterers, and evidently the expenses were more than the income, and he went bankrupt. He later paid everybody back, but, he had gone bankrupt. And I said to my mother, when was that? She says, just when you were born. She says, every child brings their own luck, she says to me. And he says it was very hard to make a decision to send 4 kids to yeshiva. I said, so what'd you do? He says, I didn't get a new dress. Your father didn't buy a new car. We scrimped. We had to get by. But to give our kids a Jewish education, that was something that was very important. And all of this is leading up to what I really want to speak about this week. My father said, I heard this actually from Rabbi Gottesman, not from my father, who I had the zchus to speak about it in an earlier podcast. Rabbi Gottesman, he says, my father said, when he wanted to enroll the kids, he says, but I'm not Shomer Shabbos. My kids will go to yeshiva, and they'll look down at me. Which, by the way, is a very serious consideration, because Rav Moshe Feinstein, somebody wanted to start with Tfilas HaShachar and Brachos instead of Elu Metzias like they usually did. And he says, no, it's more important that kids learn that if you find a lost object, you return it. And if so, you should know what belongs to you and what belongs to other people. And afterwards, he told his son, he says, there's another reason. You'll learn about something called, Sosman Kriyashma and Sosman Tvila, and they'll see that their parents don't do it. And be a bit of a contradiction. Yeah. There's that always that moment when kids realize that their parents aren't perfect. Yeah. I was learning Navi with my son. Today he's in his 30s. And we used to learn after davening on Shabbos, and we chaza over. And something came up in the Navi, and I didn't remember it. Could be I learned it as a kid, I didn't remember it. And I remember he looked at me and he says, how could you not know this? You're an Abba. I said, because I didn't have the zchus to go to a cheder in Yerushalayim like you did. And one day when you're a big Rosh Hashiva, I'll sit in your shir and listen to you teach Torah. I don't think the answer was satisfactory as I would have hoped it would have been, because, we'd like to believe, So he says, so that's why Reb Moshe says, you're going to teach it to people about Zmanim, and they'll see their parents don't keep it. The contradiction will be very difficult. And that's what my father said to Rabbi Gottesman. He says, I'm going to send my kid to yeshiva, and then they're going to see I don't keep Shabbos, and they're going to look down at me. And he said, the first thing we teach them is kibbud avim. That's the first thing we teach them, is that there's kibbud avim. Rashi, in Parshas Bashalach, he says that Mora, he gave them 3 parshios to learn. Says Dinan, which is obviously this week Parshas Mishpatim, and Paraduma, and Shabbos. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says also kibbud avim. Why didn't he teach that? Why didn't he give that? And the Maharal says, he explains why those 3 categories, but he says there's a 4th category of mitzvahs called mitzvahs tivius. They're part of who we are as a person. And kibbud av v'aim fits in over there. Kibbud av v'aim fits in over there because it's natural to a person to want to honor their parents. Somebody gave a shir and claimed that you can learn midas tova and all kinds of good behavior from goyim. And he brought a raya from Dema ben Nesina, famous Gemara in Kedushin, where his father was sleeping. He didn't want to wake him up to get the key to the safe, to open it up, to get the jewel, to sell to the base of Mikdash. And in return for that, he ended up with a paradum. So he says, you see from this that you can learn out midas tovas from a non-Jew. Rav Moshe Shapiro quoted this story once in Shir, and he says, what you see from this story is that you can learn out kibbud av v'aim from a guy. Didn't say you can learn out anything from a guy. And I think you'd be hard-pressed to find other stories of where we learn out, midos. I'm not talking about manners. It says, you learn how to eat properly from the Persians. They knew how, manners. I'm not talking about manners. I'm talking about in the performance of mitzvahs, of how to do things from a non-Jew. But by kibbud av v'aim, that you can do, because that's mitzvah tivi. It's part and parcel of who we are as a person. So you come to this week's parsha, and it says the following. If somebody is tunneling into your house to kill you, to rob you, you're allowed to kill him. Why? Because he's a rodef. If you catch him in the act of breaking into your house, he'll kill you out of desperation. Says the pasuk, unless it's clear as day that he won't kill you. And what does that mean? If it's your father. If your father is sneaking into your house, he's not going to kill you. But your son might. Your son might kill you, yeah. And I've asked this question to audiences all around the world, of all religious affiliation. And I say, of all ages, who loves who more? Parents love children more, or children love parents more? And they all say parents love children more. They all say. Because I had a student once who said to me clearly, I don't owe my parents anything. They owe me. They chose to have me. Now I'm their responsibility. They have to take care of me. I said, well, what if your parent says, I'm sorry, I realized they made a mistake. Let's solve it right now. You understand? No, they're not allowed to. Once they decide to have me, they have no choice now. They owe me. I don't owe them anything because I didn't choose this relationship. Which, by the way, is a very, very powerful statement. Because the nature of a relationship is that it's defined by the person who wants it least. So a person says to a young lady, I love you with all my heart and soul and want to spend the rest of my life with you. And she says, you are horrible and disgusting. I never want to see you again. Okay, so we'll compromise and be good friends. It doesn't work that way. If one person doesn't want the relationship will not take place. That's how it works. This is the difficulty in our relationship with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because the HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us, and so people have the ability to say, like this young man said, God chose to create me. Now I don't owe him anything. He owes me. And he put me in this world. Yeah. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us the opportunities to do mitzvos. That's why we're in this world, to choose. What is the choice? I heard this many times from Moshe Shapiro. The choice is not, should I have vanilla or chocolate ice cream? He says, a cat has that choice. Should I jump around in this garbage can or that garbage can? That kind of choice we're not talking about. Choice is one thing. Will I listen to Hashem or not? That is the only thing that determines Bechira. Am I going to give my Ratzon over to HaKadosh Baruch Hu or not? And that's why when it says, we're only in this world to be Mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or as it says in the end of Pirkei Avos, Kol Ma Shebar L'Chavoda, everything created for his kavod, because kavod and malchus is the same thing. The one thing HaKadosh Baruch Hu can't do in this world is give himself kavod. If you give yourself kavod, it doesn't have value. You get an invitation to a dinner, I'm honoring myself. Come down. It's not for any organization, it's just me. I'm so impressed with what I've accomplished. I've decided to make my own dinner. Yeah, I'm going to present myself with an award, and I'm going to have people come in, make maudlin speeches about me, and I'm going to get up at the end and say, I am so humbled that I've been chosen for this award. You understand? It has no value, yeah? Same thing with Malchus. You can't crown yourself. And that was why when Napoleon Bonaparte, who was a product of the French Republic, where they killed the monarch and they were supposed to do away with the monarchy, decided to make himself a king. Because he felt like he wasn't going to get the respect in Europe unless he was a king. So he gets the Pope to crown him. And just before the Pope crowns him, he takes the crown and puts it on his own head. That the Pope shouldn't crown him. And everybody laughed at him. You can't make yourself a king. Yeah, you can't. You can make yourself a ruler. It could be a moshel. You can make yourself a dictator. You can make yourself a tyrant. You can force other people, but a melech is only by people wishing upon it. Yeah? I'm Arthur, king of the Britons. I didn't vote for you. You don't vote for a king. How do you become a king? The lady of the lake, clad in the most shimmering sapphires, brought forth from the bosom of the water Excalibur, thereby signifying by divine command that I am your king. Listen, strange women living in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a system of government. Supreme executive command can only come from a mandate by the masses, not by some farcical aquatic ceremony. I mean, if I said I should be king because some crazy woman threw a sword at me, well, they'd lock me up. Now, the point he was making, which I think is correct, is that monarchies and it can only come from the masses. People have to decide to make you king. You can't make yourself king. You can make yourself a ruler, but you can't make yourself a king. To be a king, you have to be chosen. So only we can be Mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us Bechira. We could choose to give our Bechira over to HaKadosh Baruch Hu or not. But in order to do that, we have to recognize Avinu Shebashamayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us and gave us this. And that's why you should know it becomes complicated, because people who have issues with their parents end up having issues with their with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah? Rabbi Orlofsky told me about this this girl. I do this with my kids, when they're little. Yeah, I put them on top of the refrigerator and say, "Jump to Abba." I'm afraid. Come on, jump to Abba. And they jump, and you catch them. And after a while, they enjoy it very much. They keep jumping off. By the time they're like 16 or 17, it's really embarrassing. But okay, but just to get a bigger refrigerator. But anyway, So this little girl had the same thing with her father. Says, "Come jump to daddy." He goes, "I'm afraid." He goes, "Oh, no, jump to daddy." She jumps and he stands back and she falls and hits the floor. And he says, "You learned an important lesson. Never trust anybody." So he says, can you imagine the trust issues this girl has? Yeah. And then you carry it over to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because our Father in heaven. Yeah. So the Sefer Chinuch makes it clear. Yeah, we owe Hakaras Tov to our parents because they took care of us when they were children, when we were little. Changed our diapers and they fed us and they took care of it. And there was nothing in it for them at all. Yeah? If you're lucky, you get a smile. Understand? Yeah, smile. Yeah. Mostly they ruin your life. That's what children do, right? Because when you want to go out, they get sick. You know what I mean? And, they like to play with Lego, but they don't really play with Lego. They dump it on the floor so the pieces go everywhere, and then they walk away and you can pick up all the toys, or they pull out the Lego encyclopedia and they say, "Make me this." And you get down on the floor. And to a father, this is a challenge. You start making it, the kid leaves, And people come in and say, "Honey, the guests are here. Careful, I'm looking for this piece." You're going to finish that Lego horse, and you're making reports. The kid comes in 9:00 at night. "I have a report to tomorrow," And so the parents are working frantically. Trust me, I do much more homework now than I did when I went to school. I didn't do that much in school, And this much I did learn from my parents, that the important thing of any book report is the cover, So you just have to spend a lot of time on the cover. Nobody really cares what's written inside of it, The story is, the main characters are, my favorite part was, and sometimes I didn't bother thinking I had a book and I'd make up something, I had to write a report. I remember this on frozen food. I remember my mother got one of these snow sprays and put it on the outside to make the cover, and I took it from the encyclopedia. I pretended it was a book, and the teacher said, "I didn't know that Tolstoy ever wrote a book about frozen food. I find this fascinating." I copied out a name from the shelf, but doing homework, you're taking care of everything like that, And I'm speaking now as a son, not as a father. Yeah, but as a child, we grow up with this whole litany of complaints against our parents. Oh, my father didn't do this for me, didn't do that for me. He wasn't emotionally supportive. He wasn't here. He wasn't that. Listen, I look at every day of my life today differently because two big doctors told me I should be dead. Yeah, so every day is a gift. But if I go back, the fact that my parents decided to have me is a gift. My father had 6 boys. Yeah, he chose to have 6 children at a time when that was not so common to have large families, and he felt this was a imperative. This was something that was extremely important to him. It did not make his life easier. We are expensive. Yeah, we're not as expensive as girls. Yeah, but we're expensive, and he spent money on us. I remember he sent us to camp, and the accountant said to him once, he goes, I don't think you're in a financial position to send your kids to sleepaway camp. My father says, yeah, but they need it. They, so we'll scrimp someplace else. The amount of time that goes into it, that I invested in it, I didn't appreciate my parents when they were alive, for sure not. I was not a particularly good son. I wasn't terrible, but I was okay. But, if I could go back in time knowing what I know today, well, the appreciation I would give my parents is unbelievable. For nothing other than the gift of life. And the fact that they took care of me when I was little, and they took me to the doctor, and they, the things that, that I was given a truly blessed life. Were they perfect? They weren't perfect, but there are no perfect people. Yeah, the fact that they chose to have me and to be able to give to me was an unbelievable thing. The tragedy is, and I don't know why this is, but we write all these Gedolim biographies and we write all these articles after they're dead when it's too late to do anything about it. When a person's alive and you appreciate who they are, then you could go and spend time and chase after them and know who they are, Pesach Krohn, who also recorded a little message for my 60th birthday, yeah. He said once, he says, one of the gifts that I give people when they're going to Eretz Yisrael is I tell them which Gedolim to go and visit, when you can go in and when you can go and see them. A chance to be able to see them and be able to speak with them. Those of us who have had the zchus to speak to Gedolei Torah, what an unbelievable opportunity. And then they pass away and they're not around anymore. And we missed that opportunity. We missed that opportunity. We let it slip away. Why? Because we didn't appreciate what we had when we had it. Yeah. Same thing is true with our parents. Those of you who are blessed that you have parents, when my mother passed away, I said to somebody, I said, now I'm an orphan. I'm an orphan, And not that I don't have good friends and good people in my life, you know what I mean? But there's something special about calling your mother or calling your father before Yontif, to wish a good Yontif, to, When my father was alive, I said this, as long as you have a father, you can be a kid. And once you lose that, then you have to become the adult. You fill in that role. You become, and who will be the Zaidi of our children? And who will be the Zaidi if not we? An amazing thing. Amazing thing when we have an opportunity. Baruch Levine just wrote a song for his parents' 25th anniversary about how we pass on to our children we got from them. By the way, he also recorded a message. We'll have him on as well. But the amazing things that the gifts are that we get from our parents that we don't appreciate at the time. And so we have mitzvahs in Torah in this parasha. Yeah, don't hit your parents. That's, you chayv misa for that, I had this terrible situation with my mother towards the end when she was sick, and I was supposed to test her blood. And if you prick your parents and you bring out a drop of blood, I said, chayv misa for that, It's a terrible situation. What do you do when you have a son who's a doctor? He's the master surgeon, and his parents have to go into surgery. Difficult situations. But I'm, I wish that I had shared with my parents when they were still alive how much I appreciated them, and I think I had a chance to tell it to my mother. My father would have said, yeah, well, I wish you would have gone to college. Which is what he always said. In fact, when they told me it's almost the end with my father, I said, don't worry, I'll get him out of bed. I'll tell him I got a ticket. Watch how fast he'll get out of that bed. But, perfect, nobody's perfect. But the hakaras hatov that we have to our parents, the appreciation for it is something that is so tremendous. Those of you who have this opportunity, take advantage of it. Those of you who don't, cherish those memories. It's not that there are no bad memories. It's just like we say in Rosh Hashanah, Kol harisha ke'ashen tichla. All the evil disappears like a puff of smoke because it's not real. It's the good things we do that's real. It's all the good memories of our parents that are real, and all the other stuff is just narishkeit. Just make-believe. It's smoke. It's illusion. Let's appreciate it. That's it for this week. If you want to find out more about the show, you can visit RabbiOrlofsky.com/podcast. If you would like information or make a comment on this particular show, RabbiOrlofsky.com/podcast/17. Good golly, Miss Molly. If you want to find out about upcoming events, RabbiOrlofsky.com/events. And I can tell you now that the first Shabbos in February, I'm going to be at Kerev Tuni, and that's Sunday night. I'm going to be speaking in the Monsey area. And I still have dates available at the end of February. Those of you who would like to bring Rabbi Orlofsky to come and speak, it's not too late. Yeah, you don't have to bring me to come and speak. I can set up chairs. I cook supper. You know what I mean? Whatever you want, I am available. If you're making a simcha and you just need somebody to serve, set up the chairs. And things, I do that too. Magic shows, I am available for children's parties. Anyway, if you'd like to contact me, RabbiOrlofsky.com/contact. And if you would like to sponsor an episode, you go to RabbiOrlofsky.com/podcast and click on sponsor an episode. Thank you so much for watching and listening.